Hello, and welcome to our next presentation. This is day 3 of the final day of the symposium. And on behalf of the MIT CDOIQ Virtual Symposium, we would like to thank all our sponsors who have sponsored the symposium this year. Please keep a lookout for a very special survey that we'll be sending out shortly. In the meantime, let me thank our sponsors, Deloitte, Informatica, Privacy Analytics, DQHUB, Fusion Alliance, KPMG, Santel Consultants, Tamer, Elation, Ali Data, Big ID, Boomi, Caserta, Citizen, Data Kitchen, Garage, Okira, PiLog, Click, ThoughtSpot, Eckerson, Global ID, Snowflake, and Starburst. Please take a chance to go to Content Hub, see what content they have, download that, and if you get a chance, reach out to our partners. Without our partners, we would not be able to hold a symposium. Thank you, and we look forward to seeing you in 2021.
So yes, thank you very much. This is the Data Quality Hub that we would like to present today to MIT CDO conference. Now, just to introduce myself, I'm the chairman of the PiLog group. I gave my first presentation at MIT in 2008. And subsequently, I always visited MIT. So I won't explain to you guys why I'm sitting here in South Africa today. And I cannot join you guys. I wouldn't go into that at all. All I want to thank you guys is for this whole innovative experience, that we can share at least some of the energies. And big community. We're coming a long way with the CDO and with Rich and the team. So let me introduce quickly. With me, I've got two additional gentlemen that's going to present today. The first one just after me, where I'm going to do some introductions to the Data Quality Hub that we want to discuss with you, is Mr. Imad Syed. He's our Chief Information Officer within the PiLog group. And he will be followed by Mr. Wynand Nortje, who is the Chief Technology Officer in the PiLog group. So I didn't change anything. If you ask now, we're doing a presentation on CDO. Well, you can regard these two gentlemen as the PiLog CDOs, but I thought I'll spare Rich, the 2 extra free tickets, because Rich said, if I could bring CDOs, they can come for free. So we left the titles as they are right now, and we spared Rich with 2 tickets. Okay, without any further ado, let me get into this. So what we would like to share with you is the whole Data Quality Hub, which we believe is an essential CDO platform for digital transformation and automation. Now, maybe just a quick introduction and sentence on the PiLog group. We were founded in Paradigm Systems between 1985 and 1995. I was one of the founder members, and we developed the South African Air Force system, as well as later the UK Royal Air Force logistics system. But since 1995, PiLog specialized in data quality and in the commercialization of the NATO templates into the ISO Open Technical Dictionary, which is multilingual characteristic data for e-commerce and governance for master data and ERP systems. And we're going to dive down a little bit into what this means in this Data Quality Hub. And typical implementations in industry today are with the following clients. So what we're sharing with you is not just theory, but it has been implemented. Typically in mining industries, if you can look here at the left-hand corner, plants, aeronautical and defense, of course. So apart from the South African Air Force, we've done a lot of work for the UAE Armed Forces, Oman, the US, etc. Petrochemical is actually one of our fortes. So we've done a lot of clients in petrochemical. One of our flagships is SABIC. I think we started off in 2002 and have never left since. So we've got a big footprint in petrochemical, in energy. Eskom is the Total Electricity Supply Commission for South Africa, oil and gas and refineries, FMCG, like you can see a lot in the breweries, guys, iron and steel, etc. Cement companies, telecoms, transport, textiles, airports, aviation, nuclear, entertainment, construction, and marine. And at the base of this is very much what we would like to share with you with regards to the PiLog Data Quality Hub. So this is the picture which we'll drill down into a little bit more, but just to let it in, you can see it deals with multiple data sources on the left, CDO tools, and using our products and processes to actually migrate it to target systems, and using a lot of cloud services in the process. So if we go a little bit deeper into it, and we just want to share with you what this platform for the CDO is. So what is it? As you can see, it's bringing together the supplier relationship management, customer relationship management, human capital management, the ERPs, third-party system, of course, analytics, but the whole data warehouse scene where you have data marts, archives, structured and unstructured data, the whole new concept of data lakes, big data, and IoT. So it brings a lot of this together. So the strategic objectives and the fundamental principles, I will quickly cover that. And then the benefits of this data quality hub and why it's such a good platform for the CDO, we'll illustrate that via two case studies, which Imad will do case study 1 and Wynand will do case study 2. So what is this data quality hub? So it is a seamless collection of multiple sources, interaction and enablement of appropriate data science tools. It's the utilization of ontologies, taxonomies, dictionaries, glossaries, classifications, etc. Extraction of supportive data from cloud services, data harmonization and governance into business systems, agile data flow and transformation and migration of this data, data quality assessment and continuous improvement, and artificial intelligence and machine learning enablement. And then it's a single version of truth for authoritative and also verify. Okay. So the strategic objectives of this hub, if we can summarize it, it's orchestrated processes, strategic savings, controlled governance rules, systematic information flow, and a monitor of business processes. And this provides a 360 view of enterprise data, which is then established the single version of truth for data quality, centralized of business entities and data objectives, which is governance and orchestration, smart enterprise researches and process improvement, which is redefine and refine. And it also gives an excellent platform for establishing data analytics, which is addressing business problems, insights into business performance, the CXOs or the CFOs or the CDOs, dashboards for them, and cost effectiveness. And of course, agile, scalable, and efficiency platform. So this is built on the foundations. And I must drill a little bit into more depth into this, because this is really, really important. When we found it, the whole sort of basics of the hub, this originated in 2008 when PiLog, being one of the mirror committees in South Africa, we started that off, and we started ISO 8000. And very important to this hub is the whole idea, which we started in ISO 8000 to define every piece of data in terms of concept identifiers and automated characteristic data exchange. That was built in ISO 8000 Part 110. It provides for the dynamic templates, which originated from the old commercialization of the NATO principles, and data quality continuous improvement in the Part 60 series. An agile data flow to this. It's based on ontology for harmonization and transformation, and big data scalability and enablement, and of course, human augmented algorithms and machine learning, which is so important in this modern day of digitalization and so forth. Just a small overview, and sorry for the scrambling. I can see this just muted, but in essence, ISO 8000, we started off with the master data. The big piece there, which we started in 2008, was the exchange for a characteristic data so that syntax, semantic encoding, and conformance to data specification could really be done. And that piece that we started off in 2008 branched off, where today we're looking at Part 80, which is data profiling, data rules, apply of data rules, and then of course the whole Part 60, which is data quality management and the processes that associated with that. And maybe just to elaborate a little bit deeper into these principles, if you, for example, would like to codify a piece like a bolt machine, which you can see there, you can see if you say a bolt machine, every item there, if you look at this template for this bolt machine, and you look at width across flats, you look at some characteristics like head height, 0.59 inches, and there you can see what's meant by that. There's the concept identifier for head height, and if you can look at this codified, you can see head height, there's the concept identifier, 0.59, and there's the concept identifier for inches. And this renders everything into a lot of descriptions, which in turn, we have a concept identifier, which does concepts translation for each of these specific languages. So this is a mouthful, because this is at the heart of this data quality hub. All of this is done with the concept identifiers to actually allow data quality control. And just a simple practical example, if you, for example, look at something like a flange pipe, which is here on the left-hand side, there you can see the attributes of that, and you can see how it's rendered and controlled. Behind this is all the concept identifiers, and immediately from our Russian office, I don't understand a word of Russian, but this is the Russian translation in concept, so that this specific content from our hub can be leveraged into e-commerce and a lot of other platforms, just to illustrate some of the principles. So key to this is the whole issue of ontology. So at the heart of the data quality hub is what we call the open technical dictionary, where each piece and thousands and thousands and thousands of items and services are actually cataloged in terms of the class, the properties, the unit of measures, the values, currencies, quantity of measure, etc., etc. And we utilize that to actually build what we have today centrally, what we call the PiLog preferred ontology, which is actually the base of the data quality hub. And that drives a lot of templates in a dynamic model, which we use to actually drive our customer specific dictionaries and their data requirements. So that's at the bottom of this. And within the data quality hub is the Part 60, which is for the guys, not giving away my age, but way back when quality circles came into life. And it was the old Deming plan, do, check, act, plan, do, that quality circle. That was actually taken up into the Part 60 of ISO 8000. And the reference model is very much what you see here, also bringing in the data rated support and resource provisions. So this quality process is built into the data quality hub at this point in time. And just to summarize and take this a little bit broader, so once you grasp this whole big data quality and the concepts identification, in our lives, a form like this, or the one on the right-hand side, is nothing else than a template. So for us, we take a form like this. Each of these labels are actually concept codified, and unit of measures, translations, etc. is taken care of. And the whole data quality hub sits with a dynamic data model at the bottom, which means we have data modeling for any of these templates which we can configure, on the fly. So as you go into and you get more values, you can dynamically, depending on what the value of a specific template is, you can drill into a next layer of templates. And within that, we describe vendors, products, services, customers. And on top of these qualified templates, we built in quality rules like controls, lists, masks, regular expressions, data type formats for predefining and rendering this into a high configurable, high quality data. Here's a typical example. If you look at this is just from a South African perspective. So if you say a vendor is a company, it could be a sole proprietor, it could be a partnership, it could be a PTY company, it could be a trust, etc. But to each of these, there's actually a template as to what's street address and how to define street address, how to define building address, how do you find intersection address, and to each of those, you have all of these. And all of these are templates driven by this data quality principles. And that's at the foundation of this hub. Key to this is the whole issue of sourcing or getting information from source, raw data, be able to profile that into an HDFS data lake. And automatically, as we bring in data into this lake, we have dynamic ETL processes to move data from various levels of quality, whether it's a data quality level 1 or data quality level 2. So this is an experimental side. And on the ETL side, we can then actually build the models. If the model is not really right for a specific application of a specific product, we can re-example it from this side and so forth. So this allows for a agile data flow, which is embedded in this data quality hub. And if we quickly look at this, and finally, so if you look at this data quality hub with all the areas that it's covering, in summary, it's bringing down structured business or ERP type of data. It's bringing in the whole big data of social media, and we allow in the data quality hub to bring that together and actually file and label that in the master data quality hubs so that you get a single version of truth and allows for analytics and so on. So this is my quick summary of the data quality hub. I'm going to give this over to Mr. Imad so that they can do some case examples and discuss this with you. And as questions comes in, I think we can deal with that a little bit later and illustrating that via these case examples. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Doctor. Okay. Doctor has shown the entire architecture or what is behind as a foundation in terms of the data quality hub. What I would be presenting is actually a real use case or a business case of the entire data quality hub, how we can utilize it, and what are the benefits that we can get out of it. So the use case is supply chain, digital transformation, and automation. And it's actually a mouthful. It's actually a longer title, but the specific case that we'll be touching now would be on inventory optimization. Now, prior to that, what are the use cases of data quality hub? Let us quickly look at that. Data quality hubs can be created, can be established, can be strategized to do one of the following or many of the following things, such as master data management, to establish the single source of truth or single version of truth, or augment any operational data management, or it could be for the meta or reference data management, or it could be for operational data management to comply with the standards or to comply with the business performance, and also to actually assess the business performance. Or it could be also used for the data analytics, which is for the business performance insights, or it could be for the CDO or CXO dashboards. And one of the other purposes could be, use case could be the integration and orchestration with other systems within the landscape or across different landscapes, wherein you can collaborate, syndicate, synchronize the stuff. Or it could be also to automate some of the things such as the robotic process automation or IoTs or AI or ML stuff. And last but not the least, it could be also for the data quality establishment, assessment, and improvement. So let's look at what exactly, how exactly this entire data quality hub works. Whereas, everybody has data hubs and data warehouses, data lakes, data swamps, and a lot of different data related platforms or strategies. But you can see we have highlighted quality because for us, quality means actually the real data, or it's the right information. So there are 3 C's in exactly the use case of a data quality hub. 1 C is collecting the data from different sources or processes or systems as well as the platforms. So that's 1 C. And it is very easy to remember. That's why I have simplified this thing. The second one is correlate the data. What kind of data? It could be metadata, reference data, master data, operational data, or analytical data, or any data coming out of data warehouses. So that's correlate. When we talk about correlation, it's actually about the governance. It's actually about the quality establishment. And then the third thing is that once you have done all of that, you can connect with the various sources and target systems, and then platforms or any of the landscapes to orchestrate the processes as well as the data. And then there are a few things that I would like to clarify when it comes to the data hub. Data hub or data quality hubs, they are not the out of the box products or the technology. They are either the enterprise strategies or they are the frameworks to establish some business principles, to establish governance, to establish quality. So if somebody says that we have a data hub as a product, I wonder how you can utilize it to address the strategies of various different problems or the challenges that enterprises face with regards to the data. The second myth is that everybody thinks the data hub is same as data warehouse or a data lake or data swamp or data mart. It's not. It's absolutely not. Data hub is actually the superset of data warehouse, data lake, or data swamps, or data marts. For that matter, any other data repositories, because data hub is actually tackling the real-time data, live data, whereas data warehouses are always working on the legacy data. Data lakes are actually the repository of clean data that could be augmented with any other data sources. So there's a huge difference between that. And then the third thing is that data hub is an architectural platform or a pattern, or it's a framework. It is definitely not a product, and which must enable governance and orchestration of the data. One very important point is that if we have a data hub platform and it is only doing integrations with other systems, which is not a real-time integration, which is not orchestration, then it might not be data hub, because data hub always connects the dots between all the different landscapes, different processes and systems. And you can see quality is important for the data hub. So that's about the data hub. And what exactly should be the processes if we are establishing a data quality hub for any enterprise? For any enterprise, the following processes are required. One or many of the following processes are required based upon the strategy of what exactly is the problem that one is going to address. What exactly is the problem the enterprise or the CDOs or the CIOs are going to address. Now, the first process comes in here is data acquisition. So I'm not talking about a product. I'm not talking about any technology here. I'm talking about a process. And what is that process? The process should be, acquisition process, data acquisition process should be there, which means when somebody builds a data quality hub strategy, when somebody builds that kind of framework, there should be something which is a pre-built data connectors from where you can acquire the data, and real-time data acquisition and ingestion should be there. Data discovery, modeling, mining, profiling, all these capabilities should be there as part of that process. What kind of technology, what kind of product we take, it is not necessary at this point in time because it is a strategy or a framework. In the framework, these are the things that needs to be fit into. So one is the iData acquisition process. The second one is the iData harmonization. So once you acquire the data, there should be some process, and there should be some tools, there should be some products, but with what kind of process? The process should have the data loading and profiling process, data cleansing, standardization, or any of those corrections, enrichments via connecting with the repositories or libraries, as well as any data transformation or data quality assessment. So these are the processes that are absolutely required as part of iData harmonization process. This is what we actually advise, we prescribe it. And ultimately, these data harmonization processes would establish the data quality as well as the compliance of it. And then the third process is that iData governance. One is acquisition of the data and harmonization. The other one is continuous governance of it. So there should be a lot of processes, sub-processes under iData governance to create and manage the master data. And all those are actually listed there. And this would also allow us to establish the data quality and evaluate the SLAs and KPIs via the infographics. And then the fourth one is iData integration. There should be a process to integrate, connect all these things. It must be a seamless data integration. It should be an orchestration, and preferably with the help of the APIs or the microservices. And then last but not the least, data analytics. Because at the end of the day, the CDOs, the CFOs, CIOs, all the CXOs are looking at how we can improve the business performance, how we can optimize our processes, how we can see real-time benefits out of it. So iData analytics should be another process. So when we talk about that, you have fair idea of what exactly the data quality hub is going to do in any business case. So now the business case is inventory optimization. We know that in terms of inventory optimization, there are various systems that are connected, various stakeholders that are involved in that, and there's a lot of lead time, in sourcing something or also to deliver something. Maintenance is involved, planning is involved, sourcing is involved. So if you look at this figure, yes, it looks very simple, but it's really a complicated business case because there are a lot of entities that are involved in that. And if you look at what are the questions that have been asked prior to this real-time use case, and by the way, this is a real-time use case that we have performed for one of our customers. What were the questions? The question number one is, do we have the right data quality of master data as well as metadata? And which means that, do we have taxonomies, dictionaries, glossaries, classification? If not, how can we establish? That was the first question. And then the second question is that, do we have the spares criticality and its ranking? Because if you really would like to optimize the inventory, you need to understand the criticality of each spare, where it is linking also into the equipment, so that you can optimize the inventory parameters. So these were the real-time questions that were asked. And then, do we have the right linkage between equipments and its associated spares? Which means EBOMs, equipment master, material master, how healthy it is, how mature the data is. That was another question. And then the other question asked was, do we have the inventory qualified and quantified inventory? What does that mean? That means that obsolete, wrong spare, surplus, and by the way, it is also linked with the dollar value. And then the last question is that, do we have effective and efficient processes to manage process dependency? And all these questions had to be answered with this use case. You can see that the use case was not simple. The use case was very difficult use case. So how did we implemented this? So we went through a series of iVision implementation framework, wherein in 7 steps we have implemented this use case, and you would also see what are the benefits that we have gained out of that. So evaluate and assess the entire business case. Only once business case is approved, we must move. And this is a practical challenge, everybody faces. Each one has got a business case, but none of the stakeholders agree on the deliverables of it. So that's why we need to agree on that. Then only you start with the business analysis and blueprint, then develop model and train the model, configure the model, make the realization of the model. Once that is done, put it down into a dev as well as the QA environment. Once that thing is completed, get all the stakeholders involved, change management and approval of the model, because we are spending time, effort, energy, platform, technology, everything into that. It cannot just go into trash after the model is being trained and successfully completed. So we need really the change management and approval of that. And once you transform and validate that model, move it into production, and after that, establish all the process orchestration. Why important? Because we do not want any manual intervention going forward. That's why process orchestration is important. And then you go live and move into the production, and that's in real time. All the processes would work without any manual intervention. So that was the case of this entire inventory optimization. Now, if you look at what were the stakeholders, who were the stakeholders, and which departments or functions were involved: maintenance, production, warehouse, sourcing, procurement, and logistics. Everybody was involved there. So what we have done is we created, a OLAP model for master and metadata, and then we created another OLAP model for spares and criticality. Then we created another OLAP model for demand and planning. Then another OLAP model, another set of cubes that we created for sourcing and pricing. And the last one was the procurement and logistics. You see, these OLAP models were created based upon the previous questions that have been asked for the business case. And based upon that, what we have discovered and what we have proposed, you would see now. So what did we discover? In terms of the inventory optimization, we said, okay, these certain KRAs that we have established, single source of truth. We wanted to establish that. Did we achieve that? Yes, we have achieved that. There were about 65,000 MRO material records. And by the way, all of them were spares and equipments related stuff. So 65,000, what we have done, we could hit, we could discover that there are 11,000 items that were redundant, duplicate records and duplicate spare parts stored in different places. And that amounts to 10 to 12% of the entire savings of that. So which is about 13.6 million USD. And then in terms of the inventory value optimization, the total inventory value, that was that they were holding was about 155 million US, and non-moving inventory was about 44 million US. So we have performed the data maturity assessment based upon all the industry specific algorithms, all the different methodologies. And then we said that, okay, 19.5%. Year one savings would be about 30.2 million USD. Can you imagine, what is the kind of business case that we have solved? And you can see even with one hit, we could get, huge return of investment. And this was already documented into the strategic roadmap for them. And then we have optimized the MRP and inventory metadata, which was again 67% of that, 9 to 10 million USD. And that's also another cost reduction, or you can call it as a saving. And then there were a lot of interdependent processes, or interdependent cross functions were there. So all the inventory process optimization also depends on the cross functions. From the maintenance perspective as well, we have established, the clean equipment to spares linkage and the reliability of that, and that we have reduced it to 10K E-bombs. And then that could save potentially 2 million USD going forward in the first year or going forward. And then the sourcing and procurement contract compliance was an issue. We have improved the contract compliance for all the MRO items. And also, we have suggested that about 30% of MRO contracts could be either, converted into just-in-time or vendor-managed inventory going forward. So that's also, about 10% of savings, and then 8 million USD cost reduction. And then warehouse, the entire maintenance cost for the warehouse was 25 million USD, whereas the total inventory value is 155 million US is too much. So we also suggested for automation, but we have not calculated what could be the potential savings out of the automation. But if you look at it, this was the business case that was addressed and solved, and it's a strategic roadmap, and the entire orchestration is established so that in future, any of the new data flow or any of the new consumption, demand, sourcing, maintenance, anything to do with all these functions is already streamlined, and we created the CXO dashboards that would show these kind of savings going forward. And that was our business case. Thank you very much. Wynand, would you take this over?
Thank you, Imad.
If there are any questions, you can type in, and I will keep answering them. Thank you.
Good day, everyone. Thank you, Imad. Thank you, Dr. Salomon. Thank you for doing the first part of the presentation. Dr. Salomon explained our data quality hub, and Imad did a presentation on the inventory optimization. I'm going to do one in a different area, where you actually have in a financial area, and then I'm going to touch on a data quality framework and how you can use your data quality hub to actually support a good data quality framework, and just one of the automation techniques also used in this case study. Okay, so this one, the case study is on the financial sector. So typically you have different silos. It could be different companies or divisions like insurance company, the banking company, credit loans, home loans, insurance companies. What you typically find in that is that you have decentralized business entities that can lead to inconsistent application of standards. They have different systems that are actually used in the different areas, especially from insurance to typical banking systems could be quite different. And there's different ways that they actually look at their data, the data quality links, and the data they keep, and the way they actually standardize that. That can also then lead to ineffective customer marketing and awareness. Could be difficult to adhere to legislation because you have all the different silos of the different data in the different areas. It's also different to adhere to data quality in exactly the same way, and to make sure it's also happening in all the different divisions to the same level that you need for your business. And it can also not be complete at the same level of completeness or accuracy between the different divisions as well. And that can also then lead to a lot of challenges on your reporting side. So how do we actually solve this? What is our proposal for this? We say you have to centralize your data, have it in one place, and then create it once and publish it many times, and reuse it in your company. The benefits you will find from that is increased compliance with regulation and customer regulation requirements. Also, your customer preferences can be kept in one place. You know, these days with all the different requirements on privacy of data, also all the information you have to keep from a risk perspective is important to have that in place. It will also increase your customer experience. They only onboard once, and then it's available right through the organization. It will also increase your customer loyalty. You can predict your customer behavior with better analytics. And if you do cross-selling, you can increase your growth and your revenue quite substantially, just from the different information available inside your own organization between the different divisions that's using the same data. So what was some of the common master data issues that we found? Search limitations. Our recommendations to implement search based on all the data fields that's required. Have a quick search, also have fuzzy logic that you can actually easily find items. Provide search, advanced search capabilities, parametric searches to help the guys to find their data. That will also reduce the duplicates that will be introduced into the system. Poor data quality validation, so enforce your patterns, your masking. That's all the data quality rules that's embedded, also embedded in the ISO 8000 standard, as Dr. Salomon explained. It's very important to make sure that you have all of that in place, and that you have it in one place, and that you look at data from one perspective with the same definition and the same business language around that. Partial regulatory compliance, it will also improve to do that in your data requirements, which is basically your templates of forms. You can make sure that all your FICA related information are in there. All your empowerment, tax compliance information are in there, and you make sure that you capture all the data that you do require. Duplicate prevention during master data take-on. So implement duplicate detection. I'm also going to just explain that the entity resolution engine that's unsupervised, actually to identify and find your duplicate data. Also in your governance processes, make sure that all the users participate, that they prompted with possible duplicates or potential common items as they go through a governance process, that you can ensure that you actually get rid of that. Insufficient data governance is typically also one of the findings. Make sure that you have stewards in place that do the verification and approval on that, and also do your independent of verification on top of that. And then incorrection of classification of master data. So by having an ontology in place with classification structures linked to that, you can have multi-dimensional reporting capability, and you can have a lot of different views looking at the same data. Also, as Imad has also explained, all the different OLAP structures that you can actually set up to look at your data from different perspectives. So if you look at the data quality management framework, this is something that you typically would want to have in place, and you can actually use the data quality hub to help you to implement a proper data quality management framework. So look, if you look on the left-hand side, you need to have your strategic governance aspects in place. Governance, as we already explained, is having your master data structure, your master data governance structures in place with the stewards. Make sure your framework is current, that you continuously work on that, embed your policies and standards into that. And if you look at your quality framework, you have to look at aspects like data sourcing. What is your data sourcing strategy? What is your creation, your usage requirements? How do you pull in data from external sources? How do you integrate it into your system? What does your lifecycle system look like? Are you working on a common taxonomy? So if we talk about a taxonomy, we also refer to it as a business language. If we talk about a simple thing like an account or specific account type, that the same definition is commonly applied through your business, and everybody look at the item and understand the same definition and meaning behind the term that you may use in your business. Make sure that you have architectures in place, your business architecture, that's all your solutions that must interact together, your data architecture, your system architecture, your infrastructure architecture, whether you want to deploy on-premise, cloud, or hybrid implementation. Your metadata management must be catered for, data lineage to make sure that you understand how your data is transformed in every cycle through the process. If it goes through different processes or different workflows or different orchestrations, that you understand exactly who is responsible for what change in that and how it actually fit together. Your technical and your business metadata. And then at the bottom, as we already explained, we have your master data as a foundation, which have all your identifiers in place and all your classification structures in place to work on top of. This will actually give you then your reporting capability to ensure that you can do your regulatory reporting, you can act quickly in a crisis, whether it's whether you had a penetration event and some data was hacked, or whether you have even something like the COVID crisis that we had, and you had to quickly identify where's your data and who must interact with that. Your risk reporting, who you're doing business with, all of that is then catered for in a data quality management framework. And then on the right-hand side, you must make sure that you have controls in place, all your process controls, all your security controls, your business continuity controls, to make sure that you can protect your business as you go forward. And if we look at some more detailed aspects inside our data quality framework, we have our data services hubs. So inside that, we have data services, and part of that, some of the key components in there will be your ISO quality wrapper. That we actually measure the data, and Dr. Salomon also referred to part 60 and part 80, where you can actually understand exactly what is the quality level of the data that you're busy with. I'm going to touch on a bit more detail there. You want to share and collaborate data, you want to work on top of knowledge bases, you have automated tools like entity resolution techniques in there, auto-structured tools that you can auto-complete data or auto-classify some of the data that comes into your system, and you could have some G-coding aspects involved as well. In this specific example, you can see there's a lot of different role players from the security companies that participate, the fleet management. Tom is also integrated there, where they actually have to send people out to specific places. And you can have emergency assistance and the medical help also interacting into this. You go to the next slide. Part of the data service hub is your data dictionary with all the classes, properties, and values in there. There's proper controllers in place that you can ensure that everybody that accesses that correct authorization happens, and data needs to be encoded where required, with sessions for different parties that will actually interact into this. And then if you also look at the next slide, it must also allow you to actually ingest raw data and then actually transform it into more higher levels of quality before you actually exchange it to the next party. So part of the whole process that you actually, in your transformation process, you can actually grade your data to see at what quality grade it is, and you can also have a confidence level on your data. And then you can supply data for different purposes. In some cases, at the lower grade quality, you can use it for trends and for making decisions on what direction to go. And if you want to exchange data, you need to have a the proper level, confidence level item, so that you know that you're exactly working with the right data if there's a transaction going to happen on top of that. So if we look at the typical system landscape and this specific use case as well, there's typically an ERP system in there. Part of the ERP system, there's different modules like customer management, supplier management, material management, and service management is typically what you find. And then part of this is then actually other systems, that downstream systems that actually use some of the data that's from your ERP system. You could also have multiple ERP systems in place. Now, the first question that we always ask is where's your master data and where's your master data managed? So if it's not separate, that's our first recommendation, that you actually keep your master data totally separate from your system landscape. Part of your master data system and the governance processes would be the forms, that's the data requirements, all the templates that you need to comply, all the workflows, that's part of that. Access layers are identifying the specific places in the workflow that the data, what data is visible, what data needs to be encoded, who can interact with it. Notifications are spawned to all different role players in the workflow, and you do your integration and reporting as part of that as well. You typically can do different types of reporting or integration. You can integrate to your ERP and then to your downstream systems, or you can also go through a middleware like MuleSoft or PO, and then interact with your different downstream systems that actually will use the system, the data that's syndicated to the different solutions. So if we look in this specific case, we also ask 3 typical questions. Who are we interacting with the master data or the business functions? What business functions are being performed and how are they interacting with the business functions? And then we split the data into public data and enterprise data. In this specific example, you can see there's a farmer that's actually interacting with the finance divisions, with the insurance divisions, there's vehicle purposes and asset finances that also takes place, corporate services that take place. And the public data of all those divisions of the organizations need to be in one place, that you can keep it together and that you can manage it in one place. Then there's enterprise data, which will include a lot of specific data to the accounts and to the business functions that take place for each specific business division. So if we delve a bit into more detail into this, you can see typical examples of your public data, statutory information, contact information, address information, banking information, tax information, BBB information. That's typically empowerment information, where specific interest groups need to be given preference. That's mandated with legislation, and you need to report on top of that. And you want to do that in one place, that some of that data also belongs to the specific entity or the specific business partner, and they must have access to actually update their data and make sure it keeps up to date. On the bottom side, you'll have all your risk management information. That could be the ownership structure, the shareholder information, the director information, the operational activities of the business entity that's operating in your landscape, the operational footprint. So typically, if you have any FICA requirements, if there's any terror activities that you may need to report against or to caution against, you need to make sure that you have all of that information available and that you can report on that, and that you can also manage it in one place and update it as required for your business entities. So if we look at the last slide here, it's just some of the cleaning process that we use here. This specific process is that the intention here is to clean data and keep it up to date without using any domain stewards or any outside intervention. You want to automate this. So this process typically runs on 4 parameters. There's a blocking threshold, there's a stop word threshold, there's a matching threshold, and there's an entropy threshold. So the record sets are tokenized, and then the counts are computed to get high frequency and low frequency counts. Then stop words are identified with the high frequency counts, and then we block by low frequency tokens. That's also for performance reasons. Then a scoring matrix is used to actually, within each block, to actually group records together and create clusters. The cluster is then evaluated to the entropy, that's the difference in values or the chaos between the different values. And if it's of a low entropy, it will actually go through to a final cluster. If it's too high, it will actually, the matching threshold is then increased or incremented, and the whole process is repeated again. And then in the next cycle, you actually get new sets of records that's grouped together, and the entropy is measured again. And this process is repeated until you have no more left. And then you actually have your final sets of different clusters where it's actually grouped together. And as a last step, you can also clean your clusters by actually replacing some of the tokens inside some of the clusters. Thank you. That's it from my side.
Thank you, Wynand.
Thank you,
Okay.
Wynand.
Yep, we do have about 7 or 8 minutes left that we can take some questions, and they are coming in. This person asked, are you able to take or utilize reference data models from external sources?
Would you go for that, Imad?
Yeah, all the external reference data models can be actually harvested into the Data Quality Hub platform. So there are a lot of external libraries, there are a lot of schemas that we have integrated into the Data Quality Hub. Thank you.
Excellent. Who was involved in building the DQHUB framework, and what outputs were produced?
DQHUB is actually a strategy or a framework. So, we have invested probably good 7 to 8 years before we could build that framework. And that framework comes from PiLog's industrial experience, PiLog's involvement with the ISO standards, as well as a lot of industry expertise. So it is designed by us. The framework is designed by us, but it's not a rigid framework. It can be changed dynamically.
Thank you for that response.
Thank you.
Maybe Elizabeth, just to add to that, I think that's the whole evolvement that happened, for the 20 years that we've been into this. It's something that evolved, and initially we started, with the NATO templates, which was an e-commerce sort of initiative in the 2000s. And when we discovered the power of all of this, and that's where ISO 8000 started off, it was really a matter of seeing, well, to what extent do you have really structured data, and how can you leverage that? So we started from that end, and then being the guys, if you look at the outlined list, putting all of this into ERP. So our job for 20 years was to get clean data into SAP to get this stuff workable, And from that, you get a lot of lessons learned. And we just realized, coming from a master data governance perspective, this evolved. So we're very proud to actually have a place which started off like, I think Wynand touched on that on one of his slides, to actually have a single place where you can drive your governance, where you can actually test your policies against it, etc. So that's the exciting part. And maybe to add a little bit, the one portion of this, we do a lot of work with University Little Rock, Arkansas. Our R&D section runs with John Talbot, and Rich is also there. So we've done a lot of work, and exchanges, and we're very proud of pulling them in, especially on the machine learning stuff and so on. So I think it's a collaborative involvement that happened.
Yeah, I just want to add to what Saul is saying. It's actually a combination of all the best of our products and all the best of the industry that we actually put into our data quality hub to cater for all the different business cases that you may need to solve.
Thank you for extending the backstory. I think that that's very interesting for any large enterprise company or servicing large enterprises. It's often a question, how did this spark happen? And why didn't I build a better mousetrap when they see one? So that's excellent. So here's an interesting question from David Eddy. Did Inman take presentation pace lessons from John Zachman? I think that's.
I was the fast one, but Imad is now the fastest one.
See, I met John Zuckman about 9 years ago on one of the courses. So probably there might have been some influence of him.
That's cute. So
Thank you.
I'm glad we all got a chuckle out of that. I was hoping it would break the ice. Here's a more interesting one. Did you create a gold standard for the data? And if so, how did you go about creating and enforcing a gold standard?
Imad, you want to take that? Because I think that's leading into the whole PiLog preferred ontology and how you stamp it. So it's the washing machine. So maybe you go for that.
Okay. Okay, thank you. See, we talked about the data lakes are nothing but cleaned, harmonized, established set of records or repositories or libraries. And getting a gold stamp is not an overnight task. It has taken more than 12 years for us to, as well as our repositories, which has millions of records that have been already gold stamped, referenced back, and with the provenance indicator in that. So it's actually an hard work, but we have got now the repositories that we can build on in near future. So it's absolutely a single version of truth without any redundancies in those libraries and in those repositories when we have gold stamped each of those records.
Excellent. So this is the exciting opportunity with this symposium being global. This is Rehan from Pakistan stating that this is a good session. And he goes on to ask, what would you suggest is the future of the financial industry?
Maybe let me go with that because it goes back to 2008. I think it was just at the meltdown, of the previous financial crisis, and we were at MIT there in exactly that building, and at the session where everybody was, I think the mayor of New York bank or so, he did a huge presentation,
Bloomberg.
And they really discovered, I think it was John Bottinger at that time, and they really discovered the whole failure, was a data quality issue. And we left, and I joined because we ran the engineering sessions. It was actually sort of a NATO presentation that we gave at that point in time. But during lunch break, I actually went to the financial side, and we explained to the guys that, listen, why don't you adopt something like ISO 8000 into this? And the guys was there, and there was one guy from Deutsche Bank, waving, and he said, I'm an engineer. I'm coming from the automotive industry, and if we have done data quality like the financial guys, we would have no cars driving today, and that was 10 years ago. So I think the basis, we believe it's there. I think it's a matter of discipline, and it's applying the structures to that environment. Same for the medical field, by the way. But I think there's a lot of these principles that now's the time to extend it into that.
I think that's exciting that you were asked such a broad question. It really shows how the audience is leaning into your thought leadership. And on that, we're going to close with this statement that came in from the audience. It's anonymous. I wish they would have made themselves known, but this is a wonderful quote. This PiLog session presentation alone made it worth using 3 evenings at this conference. Great.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that. And thanks for the initiative for putting this together. Many thanks from our side.
Well, Dr. Salomon, you well know, since you've been a part of this community for many years, I think you first attended in 2008. We can't do anything without value partner and brilliant speakers, and you've really contributed to that. I'm relatively new. I think I joined the team in about 2015, and just happy to do my portion of the marathon and carry the torch for a little bit. Happy to be a part of it.